Hello, and welcome to episode 4, I think it is, of Black Men Speak. I am Catherine Robertson-Pilling, and this is our latest conversation with 3 men that I am privileged to call my friends: Cal Harris Jr., Ali Joseph, and Joshua Kamara. When George Floyd was killed, I reached out to these 3 men, and the idea for these conversations was born. Cal Harris Jr. is a contemporary jazz artist based in Phoenix, Arizona. Ali Joseph is a priest in the Anglican Diocese of Johannesburg, South Africa. And Joshua Kamara is an entrepreneur in Sheffield, England. For my story and why I, as a white woman, am facilitating this conversation, I invite you to watch the first episode. Just to emphasize, I'm not an expert or a scholar. I may get something wrong here, but I feel it's really important that we ask questions and listen to the people in this program to give us an opportunity to understand things that we don't. Now is a time to exchange our stereotypes for real human beings. And we are co-creating this series as we go. We are in a series of 6 that we have agreed, the 4 of us, to do on themes. Our first theme was white privilege, and today we're going to be talking about colorism. So here we go. So I'm recognizing this is a term that may not be familiar to everyone. I heard the term shadeism first, and I would like to invite the 3 of you to define this term of colorism, what it means to you, what it means, as a way that we start. Let's start there.
Well, I'll jump right in. Growing up, I learned pretty quickly that there was a rating system for Black people, and that the darker you were, the lower you were on that system. And my father was about my color, maybe a little darker, and my mother was very light skinned, and almost to the point where you didn't know for sure if she was Black. And she was considered to be beautiful. And my experience, well, her experience I'll talk about first, is she was the lightest of her brothers and sisters, and she lived in a home where this rating system applied as well. And there were she had brothers and sisters that were darker than her, and they were treated far worse than she was, or she was treated far better. So I know our last conversation was on white privilege. There could be a whole nother series on light privilege. You know, there's I would see where white people will treat the people that look closer to them in a different way, you know. Then it's like, oh, well, you know, you're not all the way Black, are you? And growing up, that was something that I actually, at one point, I used to wish that I was lighter, and wish that I could claim mixed heritage, you know, because that seemed to endear you to the ruling class of white. So I guess as an introduction to my experience, that's where I come, you know, that's my story on that, and I'll give someone else a chance.
Great, Cal, thank you.
Okay. No, the shadeism, the colorism, like living in a house where there were four of us, four boys, like skin tone, like the texture of your hair, the color of your eye, like you get there's a spectrum of like black to white. The more you rate closer to the white side, like it did influence the way you got treated. But where I come from a part of the world where you find, because our ancestors were not, they were not black, they were yellow. So people they don't understand how we live in the hottest part of our country, but our skin tone is light. So every time when people but I say no. If you understand that the original people that used to live here were yellow, not black. They were yellow. They were the original inhabitants of the southern parts of Africa. And now, because the white people didn't bring their wives with them when they came here, they gave life to us. And now, like, people are almost like, no man, but like you're almost white. I say yes, because you're always measured against whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
Your worth, your dignity, your ability, your all those things they were connected to how, on the scale, how close you were to the white part. And I said to them, like, this is almost like making bricks. You want the form, you just take the cement and you put the form on it, and the bricks must all be the same. It cannot be the same. And here is where this colorism is something that, like, it's something evil, because what the white people did was, like, they said, oh, it's fine, we'll sort them out. We'll just, plant the seed, among themselves. Okay, you oppress one another on the basis of how close you are to us.
Wow.
The closest to us will support you in our quest of, enslaving and, subserving the blackest of you. So there's always like this thing that, like, this is this evil of white is better than black. And so the whites just said, no, it's fine. After a while, you will enforce this yourself. So the whiter the skin, the closer you were to managerial level in a job.
Mm.
The blacker the skin, the closer you were to the most menial work. And over time, it became self-regulating. It's like, we enforced it ourselves. It's almost like how closer your eye color were to blue, the nicer, you were as a person. And like in where I come from, in my household, my father has blue eyes, but he's not good enough to be a white person. So this came from the very beginnings. I grew up in this thing that, like, we are not dark skinned, but we are not white. So this shadism, this colorism is an evil that I think it's the worst. If there's a word that describes worse after worse, it's like self-regulating oppression amongst non-whites.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Thank you, Ali.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely something. It's a seed that further separates us as people. You know, it's a very complex dynamic, but it is something which originates from slavery, where the lighter skin you were, the better duties and roles and labor you had, and it's kind of created this stigma, even between black people within ourselves, which is very destructive. And I've probably had, with colorism, I've probably had more incidents with, being questioned on your identity, whether you're African, whether you're black or white, or, so it's something which, again, it puts your character and your identity into question, depending on the lightness or the darkness of your skin. And I've definitely grown in the UK. It's something I've had to learn how to manipulate if I'm around people or settings where it will favor me, which is sad to say, to kind of dilute myself down. Not which I've done in recent years, but definitely in my teen years, where I've diluted down or not questioned or kind of challenged certain comments where it's like, oh, you're mixed race, you're cool, you're more whatever. They feel more welcome and open into to state certain opinions and views. And it's something where with colorism, again, looking back to how the media portrays or betrayed black people, darker people, from very, very early days as savages, as wild animals. And the lighter skin complexions didn't have that much media portrayal at the very start. It was focused more on darker skin, and people have had to inherit that. So there's a lot of untangling to do of people's perceptions, a lot of untanglement. But with colorism as well, it comes down to stereotypes again. With the way I'm treated, I've got many different professions and work and live in many different walks of life, and depending on what I'm wearing, how I talk, how I present myself, definitely influences on people's perception and their vision just from the colour of your skin, whether it's dark to light. So yeah, it's another very layered subject, which even I've got experience with where my dad is a Sierra Leonean, my sisters Zainab and Jason, who are dark skin, were taken back to Sierra Leone, but me and my other two sisters of lighter skin were never taken back to Sierra Leone with him. So this colorism and the effects of it exists a lot more in the black community as well as the white community than people portray or may not understand.
Cal, I remember you talking about not being black enough for your black friends or white enough for your white friends. And is that related to this issue?
Yes and no. I mean, colorism is definitely its own distinct thing, but it's also kind of a subset of a larger issue, which is that that the white race is more elevated in society, and so you can run into that problem because of the color of your skin, but you can also run into it because of the way that you talk or the where you live, and there are instances where the whole thing just gets turned upside down, because if I'm in a group of black people, there's a good chance that I'm going to fall to the bottom of their favorability list because of my privilege you know, and the way that I speak, you know, because the way I speak is closer to white people to them than it is to black. And that's always angered me, because it kind of implies that white people own proper speech, you know, and that, you know, so if me speaking proper means that I'm not black anymore, then, you know, but I mean, that's I guess we could do a whole nother series on how people talk, but at the end of the day, it's the people that I've spoken to that are lighter, including in this group, have confirmed that yeah, that is the way that it is. You know, you're never, like Ali was saying, you're not dark-skinned people, but you're not white. So you really, in a way, you don't fit into either group. But interestingly enough, there have been times where I've tried to commiserate with lighter skinned people because I understand what they're going through. And they'll look at me and like, well, what do you know? I mean, I remember a specific instance where I was in some kind of a group setting where a beautiful light-skinned girl was talking about how much she hated that and how she was being marginalized because of that. And, you know, maybe my first impression was like, well, but you're hot. You know, and you don't have to walk around feeling ugly, you know, which I have. You know, when you are in a white world and black is considered bad, then you feel like there's something wrong with you. And but I understood what she was talking about because I had similar experiences to her. And I went over to talk to her and say, hey, you know, I really appreciated what you had to say, and I understand where you're coming from. And she just gave me this look that was like, really? You understand where I'm coming from?
Darn.
There's a million ways to separate. There's only one way to come back together.
Yeah.
But the genius of colorism is that it's self-regulating.
Yeah.
I love that term, by the way.
The white people just put it there and they walked away. They said, it's okay. They'll sort this out themselves. It's like, from now on, they will not be people. They will be whiter or blacker. They will not be people. They will just gauge themselves, you know, their worth to how close they are to us. That is the joke of colorism.
Yeah, I have a question that is a naive question, and I risk saying something wrong here. So my question is, for many years, I have been a little mystified that someone who has one parent who's white and one parent who's black is automatically called black.
Because they can't be white. You can't just white. You can't be white. You can have blue eyes and be colored. Because white, it's like you have to be white.
Mm.
I've had to defend my black heritage. I've never had to defend my white heritage. I've been, you know, and I'm not deemed as, you know, white. My name's not white. My skin color isn't white. You know, my upbringing isn't white. So I've never been, you know, you get challenged, and you'll have people that try and challenge your identity. But, you know, in this society, you know, I've received racism from a very early age, which made me realize I'm not white, and I relate more with my black heritage than I do with my white heritage. Mm-hmm. So You know, I've never, like I said, I've never had to defend my white heritage, but always my black, and from an early age, which kind of defines you're black.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting about that is that, I mean, I'm certain that I have some white blood somewhere, because all of us do, just about. And so I would never be in any circle considered white or have a white heritage that I would need to defend. Yet, you know, this is probably another one of those situations. Like, well, I've had to defend my white heritage, and I have. I've had to defend being too white far more than I've ever had to defend being too black. Mm. And you know, because the minute I open my mouth and start speaking, people identify me instantly as other. And you know, when I was in school, I was called Oreo, you know, black on the outside, white in the middle.
White on the inside.
And
coconut.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. And
banana.
What about that? What did you say?
Banana.
Wow.
Banana. Okay.
What?
Like yellow on the outside, white on the inside.
What's the definition of black, of being black? What's the definition?
Exactly.
Right. Well,
that's the thing.
I was gonna touch on that, Catherine. To your question, you know, there was a time in the United States where there was a very serious rating system, similar to like South Africa. You know,
where the pencil in the head.
There was a test that was called the paper bag test. And they would basically hold up a paper bag to your skin. If you were darker than the paper bag, then you could not be in certain clubs. And if you were lighter, then you could. That was the entrance exam, was how you compared to this paper bag. And there was a time where the lighter skinned people in this country were striving towards being their own group. And Jim Crow, you've heard that term, I'm sure. Jim Crow rules, the basics of Jim Crow. I mean, that's another series we could do, but the whole idea of Jim Crow is that if you have one drop of black blood in you, then you're black. And I don't know if it was completely for that, but that was the main effect, was to make sure that there wasn't a group of better black people, you know, that they all got to be black people. And yeah, so that, to answer your question, is why that's kind of an unwritten rule, that if you have any black blood in you, then you're black.
To experience what we talked about previously, you don't experience the white privilege. So but also as well, what's sad is for a lot of people who do have identity problems, and people who, you know, are more vulnerable to taking the label that they're given. You know, I mean, when I say what's the definition of black, do I have to like chicken, smoke weed, like white girls? You know, I call it like ticker box. There's a lot of ticker box guys who are following the stereotype, like I have to wear certain trainers, I have to speak like this, I have to wear this, I have to, and that, I think you're lost, brother, because I'll be me. And I'm comfortable being, and I'm comfortable. I was saying about, we were talking off air about kids and how they can be grown in the same environment, but very unique. And I'll play on colorism. If I get stopped by the police, I'm quickly putting Radio 4 or classical music on, just for the look, just for the, because they're, you know, they're expecting a certain type of dynamic, and you can play with that. So I have a lot of fun with it. you know, being mixed race, because I'm aware of my white heritage, but I see myself as black. So I know how to play the game. I know both sides, you know, and I have fun with it personally. But at the same time, I do feel for a lot of more vulnerable people who can get lost in the trying to be black. You know, I have to, if I don't do this, or if I don't act like this, then I'm not black. And that's not what being black is about.
If you don't belong, if you clearly are rejected by one whole group of the population, whites, for example, you will naturally find your identity with the people that are not those people. But this idea of self-regulating, in we've got about 4 minutes left now, is really, I mean, it makes so much sense, and what a sinister concept, really.
Evil.
It is, yeah.
It's evil.
So because I mean, again, there's so much more to say. But I know that several of us have a hard stop on this particular conversation.
Yes.
So I would like to offer to each of you a moment for closing thoughts of what you would like the viewers, what you would like to leave them with, as we just sort of bring this to a artificial closure.
I would just like to say that, like, shadism, colorism is real, but knowing who you are and being there it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I like to say to people that view light-skinned people as not being black, I'd just like to remind you of Malcolm X, Angela Davis, Haile Selassie, and just say that, you know, we're all part of the human race, and we shouldn't allow our differences to be problematic, or we should embrace them, as Ali would say. And one love.
One love, yeah.
Yeah, well, as someone who has seen colorism from both angles, you know, I've definitely been too black and I've definitely been too white for certain people. I'm just thinking of an experiment that I heard of, and I don't know for sure that the specifics of this, but my understanding is that animals participate in this type of behavior, where if there's a litter of puppies and there's one black one and there's 8 white ones, that the black one, the mother, will push the one away, you know, and I think the saddest thing about colorism isn't so much who gets, you know, which side is being harmed the most, but just the fact that we have reduced our opinions of ourselves and each other to something as arbitrary as skin color is where we really lose. You know, I mean, you don't know that the doctor that has the mind, the person that has the mind that can cure AIDS, you know, might be as dark as train smoke, you know, or, you know, they may be white, you know, and thinking that, you know,
Yeah,
how to tell who people are by their color, we just all lose from that type of a perspective. So,
well, I think, sorry, Ali?
No, I'm just saying there's no winners in that game.
No, there aren't. I mean, what I take away from this conversation is that it's really about our identity, and
Yes.
what we all need and our children need is to learn to love themselves beneath, beyond, regardless of everything external, because every one of us comes in with a light and a spark and a gift to contribute, and we are all equal. And I have a really dear friend who comes from Ghana, who is the one who said to me, really, we are all pink, you know? You take the skin off, and we are all the same color. And there's something a little bit light in that, but it's true. So honestly, I thank each of you, Allie and Josh and Cal, for being here, for once again trusting me, trusting this process. Each conversation we have, I hear each of you more willing to say the stuff that's not easy. I also want to thank each of you who has watched this program and hope you'll join us again. I think our next topic is institutional and corporate racism. So I really wish you safety and equality and a deep knowing of your worth, such that you don't need to make anyone else less or better than you.
Yes.
This has been Black Men Speak. I'm Catherine Robertson-Pilling, and I hope you'll join us again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.